All right, Kevin, back with you for another episode of the Million Dollar Relationships Podcast. And today I am here with my friend Marybeth. Marybeth, welcome. So great to have you here.
Oh, so happy to be here.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
And this is for me, this is a really special interview because I know you and I met. So it was. I know for a fact it was pre-2017 because that's when you came to my home in September of that year.
Absolutely. Yep.
So
Yep.
we met the previous year. Is that when we met? Was it 2016? Because I know you had invested in the partnership playbook training.
Right. Right. So I think it was the year before.
Okay.
2016.
And then my first ever events, I did two of them, one in August, one in September of 2017, after a friend of mine suggested, Kev, why have you never held an in-person get-together for all these amazing entrepreneurs that you know? And I'm like, I don't know. I've never thought about it. And he's like, well, you should, because if you did, I would certainly want to come. And I'm just like, that sounds pretty cool. So we just set off and started doing that. And we did an event in August. We did an event in September of that year. And you came to my home in September. And,
yeah, I did.
And I'll tell you, for me, that was a pretty amazing experience. There was a little bit of kind of like imposter syndrome going on because I was like, wow, look at all these amazing entrepreneurs that are sitting in my living room, And I knew that many of them had businesses way bigger than mine and were way more successful than me. And that was my own thought process. And thankfully, I have had enough conversations with enough entrepreneurs and enough what I would consider really successful entrepreneurs, which I certainly put you in that category, that I have discovered, what, we're all just people trying to do the best we can with what we got in this world.
That's it.
And,
absolutely. Yep.
And so, but that's how you and I met. And the thing is, when you came to my home for that event, the other really cool thing that happened as you and my wife, Lisa, just totally hit it off.
Totally. She's an incredible woman. She really is. I love her.
Yeah. And Lisa's always asked, in fact, she knew that we had this interview and we had to reschedule it. And she was all excited to see you. And then when I told her this morning, I said, oh, I'm doing the interview with Marybeth today. She goes, oh, doggone it, I'm going to be gone. So I don't get it.
Well, next time. Yeah.
Yes, sure. Next time, for sure.
Yeah, good.
So what I want to do is I just kind of want to turn over to you a little bit and let you share a little bit about your background. What do you do? Who do you serve? What motivates you to do what you do? And just give everybody some context and let them know, who is Marybeth Gregg?
Okay. So that question, there's so many parts to it, right? Like all of us, there's so many parts to us. And, how we define ourselves. I am an entrepreneur for many years, kind of a serial entrepreneur, because I've had so many different kinds of businesses and it evolves like we evolve, right? And so right now I'm an international coach and I work with individuals and businesses, primarily in Europe, Scandinavia, and the US, and really help both of them, the people and the businesses, really navigate through difficult things and get to the point that they can do what they never imagined they could do. And also to be happy doing that, right? To be joyful doing that. So that's a little bit about my coaching. I started out in human resources many years ago, and it was interesting because when you ask me that question, you think back about like, how did I get here? And I got out of school and had college, and I had a degree in psychology. Like, oh, here I am world. And I remember, Kevin, the first interview that I went on, the recruiter said, "So what? How fast can you type?" And I was like, what? But I have my degree in psychology. It was like, so what? So I took and I'll never forget that because like my bubble burst. And so I took a temporary job in human resources and was in it for many years. And I guess a little part of it was like, I felt I didn't have a choice, but I just got into it and but did many things in it, many really cool businesses I worked for. I worked for the corporate Haagen-Dazs, which was like the most fun. It was really like besides all the ice cream you could eat, it was a great place to work. But so I've really been blessed with the clients that I've had. And um, uh, one of the things that, I talked about was like, at some point I was like, okay, I'm kind of done with HR. It's like, what else can I do? And I'm a really good cook. So people are always asking me, how do you make this? How do you make that? So I went to cooking school. I went to the French Culinary Institute and got a certificate. And I started a cooking school called Girlfriends in the Kitchen. And I did that for a few years. So I did a number of things like that. And eventually kind of got pulled back into the corporate, world, and started to do more coaching and organizational work.
Yeah.
And one of the things that happened was it's always being open, right, to new things. I got a call one day from a friend of mine, and he goes, do you want to go to Sweden? I go, sure, I've never been there, and that was 2009, and I'm still with that client. So, it's like, I'll talk about this a little while about being open, right? About saying yes.
Yeah.
So so that's kind of a little bit about what I do. And I think what motivates me through this is that I've come to understand that, we have gifts, right? You have gifts, you give to others. I have gifts, we give to others. And what motivates me is when I see them go, aha, I didn't know I could do that, right? Or, oh, I got this, somebody told me last week, I got this biggest client and I would not have done it without your coaching, and that kind of makes me feel good, because it's not about me, but I've opened something in them that they've been able to like, just go for it, just to do it and go beyond our boundaries, go beyond our comfort zones. And that's really what I help people to do. So that really, and we've talked about this before, we're here to be of service to others.
That's right. That's right.
And we really are. And you do that in a big way. And because it's not just about the things that we have or the money, it's about, really working with others and helping them and being of service. So that's, I think, really what motivates me when I see people like happy and like, yes,
For sure.
makes me happy too. It really does. Yeah.
It's interesting. I saw, and I don't want to tell the whole story because I don't want to take that much time on this call, but I saw this Garth Brooks documentary 2 years ago. It was on Netflix. It was called The Road I'm On. And I've always been a big Garth Brooks fan. I'm sure there's a lot of people listening to this like, don't even know who Garth Brooks is.
Oh my gosh, I love him. Yeah.
But, he tells the story of this guy in his life, this guy, Pat Quigley, who just helped him so much and set so many things in place. And in fact, even helped Garth Brooks set up this whole concert in Central Park in New York. And millions of people showed up for that thing. It was the biggest thing that had ever been done in the park. And this guy, Pat Quigley, set the whole thing up. He got the park to open up. He got, HBO to come film it. They made a big special and just reaching out to people. And, all those people at that event, never knew who this Pat Quigley guy was. But that somewhere he was sitting over to the side, looking at what was going on, going, you know what? This wouldn't have never happened without me.
Right. Yeah.
And that's what I feel about the work that I get to do with the people that I serve, because of who they are, because of the footprint that they already have, because they're already successful, because they have resources, because they're resourceful, I get to help them. They're already making an impact in this world, but I get to help them make an even bigger impact.
Right.
And together, they can accomplish so much more together than they ever could on their own. And that's what makes me feel good. And most people will never even know I was there. Right. But I know, and it makes me feel good,
Totally. Yeah.
So, what were you going to say?
I'm just going to say, Kevin, and also I'm sure this is for you as well. I learned so much from other people. You know, they actually challenge me, you know, not verbally or anything, but like, oh, I got to come up with, you know, something else, or what else can I do, you know, but I learn, and I love to learn every day, every single day, but I do learn from them.
Yeah.
So it's not just a one way, it's like back and forth, and
That's right.
that's really motivating too, for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what I like to do, I like to change gears just a little bit.
Mhm.
And what I'm going to do is I'm going to reiterate the question for the benefit of the listeners. And so, have you ever been introduced to a person that completely changed the course of your life or your business, so much so that much of what you have today would not be possible if not for this person? And Marybeth, I'm just really excited to have you share your story, your experience around this, as well as to be able to honor somebody who has had such a profound impact on your life and on your business.
Right. And I'm sure your other people have told you this as well. There's a big list, right? You know,
Yeah.
and totally, you know, and you know, I've been mentored by many people, and many people have influences, but I really thought about this, and it's someone I believe you know, by the name of Paul Hartunian.
Oh yeah, the Golden Gate Bridge. No, not Golden
Brooklyn Bridge.
Brooklyn Bridge. The guy who sold the Brooklyn Bridge.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I met Paul many years ago, and I'd have to say he's one of the smartest, most confident, go for it person that I've ever met. And he had an incredible effect on me. And it was interesting because I didn't necessarily realize it at the time. I mean, we're still really good friends, but in my formative years, you know, I didn't realize what an impact that he really had on me. He's just a no fears person, and he's had many renditions of Paul. You know, he probably still is one of the most known experts in autographs. You know, that's huge business. And then he got his PhD, and he got involved as an EMT, and he at one point, and this is probably where you know him from, he's an expert in publicity.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you were probably on a stage with him at one point, you know, in terms of, you know, he did all that work, and he decided that he really, you know, I know how to do this, and I'm going to help other people in their businesses, talking about being of service, right?
Mm-hmm.
To get free publicity. So he was always looking for new ventures, and the whole Brooklyn Bridge thing was, you know, and this is something that comes up, which, again, when I look back, he was very curious about things, and curiosity is so powerful. I use that with my clients a lot. So he was watching a local New York television show, and he saw this guy standing under the Brooklyn Bridge, and there was a whole pile of just old wood. And the guy was saying that they were dismantling part of the Brooklyn Bridge because they had to, like, you know, refurbish it. So Paul's watching this, and he's thinking, aha. He calls up the TV show, looks at, you know, like, where's is this stuff? How can I get it? So he went over, he bought these timbers, had it delivered, and he shaved off pieces, and he's made these beautiful certificates, and you're now an owner of the Brooklyn Bridge.
Yes.
Well, this took off like wildfire. I mean, I don't even know how many thousands and thousands of certificates of the Brooklyn Bridge that he sold. And so much so that he even got on the Johnny Carson show. And I'm thought like, oh my gosh, you know, I mean, that was a big deal then, to get on the Johnny Carson show. And but he did it with such, like, no fear, you know. And the other thing was, like, he would get and still does, he gets excited about what he's doing. So that excitement is really contagious.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important, because we have to love what we're doing, and that really comes, you know, across to other people. So his courage, certainly curiosity and imagination, it was out of the park, you know, in terms of the things that he would do or think about. And it got me a lot, because this was a great question, Kevin, because this really got me to think about the work that I'm doing.
Mhm.
And when we use our imagination and get creative, it just takes us to such new places that we've never been. And I've really used that with, with my coaching clients, especially when we're stuck, right? We're stuck and we're not feeling good and this is all terrible. And so I tell them, like, just step back a little bit, right? Be curious about this. And I call it the power of questions. Start asking yourself, like, well, okay, I'm stuck, but what else can I do? Or how else can I feel? Who can help me? And my favorite question is, why not? Why not do something different?
Mhm.
And that's what Paul did, and what Paul, he was like, oh, well, where is this going to take me? Let's try something different.
Yeah.
And why not? He was big on, like, why not?
Yep.
So that really, to me, gets us to places that, like we say, we never would imagined.
For sure.
And because that's the courage, this curiosity, imagination. And I don't know if I've heard of a American sculptor and artist, Janet Eckelman. Have you
No,
ever heard
no.
before? Oh my gosh, she's so amazing. So one day I stumbled across a TED talk that she did, Janet Eckelman, and she was faced with, she was going to do this exhibit, and she was in the Far East somewhere, and none of her paints or anything got there. And so it was a real dilemma, because this was going to be a real big exhibit. So she was just walking down the beach, and she happened to see these fishermen tying nets, and she saw how they flowed. So she started to use that and help them create these moving sculptures. And that was the beginning of what she did in terms of this whole new venture. And so when you have chance, and when your listeners have chance to listen to that TED talk, not now, don't turn it off now, we're talking. Don't go there now. It was such an eye-opener, because at one point, and I'm talking sculptures, cityscapes, they go from building to building. They're amazing, flowing, active, moving sculptures. And she was asked to do something on a huge scale using steel and processes and things she's never, ever, ever even thought about doing. And she says, I just said yes. And it was like, yeah, she just said yes. And then we figure it out.
Yeah.
Right. We figure it out.
Yeah.
And
that's huge. You're right. And I mean, because quite often I feel in many ways I'm flying by the seat of my pants.
right.
And the first time that ever happened to me would have been in about 2003. And it was really uncomfortable. But after going through that experience, I'm like, wow, that, looking back, that wasn't so bad. And look where it got me to. And then just so coming to the realization that, I don't have to have all the answers. I don't need to know everything in order to move forward. Because I'm one of these guys who I like to have my ducks in a row. I'm a researcher. I prefer having all the answers. But but the reality is we're never going to have all the answers.
No.
Never, ever. And so we got to be okay with that, and we can't let it slow us down.
Right.
So I'm curious, because from what you shared about Paul, because I did not meet Paul until after he'd already done the Brooklyn Bridge thing and all of that, and got all that publicity, and got on Johnny Carson, and then he was teaching other people how to get publicity for their own businesses.
Right.
And that's when I met him at an event where he was speaking on that. But you knew him before all that, is that correct?
Way before.
Way before, yeah. Because I remember he told the story of him used to be an EMT and all of that. But that was in his history, like long before I ever met him. But you knew him way before that even.
Yeah, and I worked for another great company, SB Thomas's English Muffins. And I was part of the team. We were building a new production plant in Chicago, in the Chicago area. And I got to be on this really cool 6-month project team to help do that. And Paul was brought in to help train people, in emergencies and things like that. So that's how I got to meet him as part of that. So I was, no, I was actually an employee then. He was brought in as a consultant. So
Okay.
yeah.
Very. So now I'm just curious. So what is one thing that just really stands out for you that happened in your life as a result of the relationship that you and Paul had that for a fact would have never happened if that relationship hadn't been in place?
So I think for me, it was to go out on my own.
Okay.
Right?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's huge. That's huge.
Yeah, I think it really was. So my husband and I, we started our own, well, he had started a consulting business before, I was still an employee.
Okay.
And, but, just with Paul's, just like, he would get an idea, make a little plan and just do it. Right. And I think I talked about the courage before, that he had the courage to do that. And he always encouraged me, you can do this, you can do that. And so wanting to be out on my own for lots of reasons, really, I think I probably wouldn't have done it without his being a role model. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, because when you and I met, you and your husband were running that business at the time, and I'm not going to lie, when I saw your guys' website, and there was a tab on there that you had that was listed like some of your clients.
Right.
You just mentioned Haagen-Dazs, you mentioned Thomas, but I saw others on there too, and right. I'm going to lie, I was like, wow. Marybeth is a big fat hairy deal. Look at who she works with. I mean, I was kind of like, yeah, that's how I was when I don't know that I ever shared that with you, but I'm like, no, you didn't. Wow, she's a big deal.
Oh gosh. And I never felt that way, it's just like, okay, and it was interesting though, because so many of those clients were referrals. By other people. Mm-hmm. And back to, we talked about the power of relationships, and networking. And that's really how, I have to say I've gotten all of my business over the years, is through relationships. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, and that's been the same way for me too, is, and I've started businesses from scratch just by having relationships that were already in place. Well, I mean, like those events that I started doing at my home back in 2017. Right. Once Tim made that suggestion, I just started making a list of who you would want to invite. And I just started reaching out to people and said, hey, I'm thinking about doing this thing. And I'm not even totally clear around what I want to do, but I think you would get benefit from this. And I just wanted to talk with you about it and see what your thoughts are. And that's simple. And then, once we get the ball rolling, then now we give people a great experience with it. And you're right. They want to tell other people. And the thing is, they don't just refer us. They rave about us to other people. And we give them an experience that they like.
I know. I know.
And it's yeah. So,
yeah.
Well, I know, for anybody listening to this, I know a certain amount of people are going to be like, wow, Kev, man, I really like Marybeth. I like the way she shows up and who she is. How can they find out more about what you're doing? Because I know you've got a relatively new book that you've written, and how can people find out more about you, and if they want to just follow up?
Sure. And it's interesting because that's another thing. I probably would never have written a book, without again, Paul's encouragement and his mentorship and also my husband. He was certainly, talking about courage, that he had passed away, and his kindness and courage throughout was just amazing. So that was one of the reasons I also wrote this book, not just for me, but again, to be of service to others as well. right? And it's just not about that story, but, all through how can we help other people? How can we be served? Because, we talked about this, we're here for a reason, and we have these messes. It's like, okay, what can we do with them? So that's one of the reasons also that, I wrote that book. And how they can, get in touch with me is, so my business website is Gregg Resources, and I'm Marybeth at greggresource.com.
Okay.
And my book is called How to Soar with a Broken Wing, Finding Tiny Moments of Joy Every Day.
So how did you come up with the name of the title for that book, Marybeth?
Well, going through what I did with my husband's illness and death, I did feel broken, right? I really did. And at some point, you have to process that and your emotions. I always feel we have to honor our emotions. They're messengers, right? Or whatever they are, to be with them and to listen and to honor them. And so, but I did feel broken. And however, I said to myself, okay, now what am I going to do with this? And for me, it's to get to fly, to really, to soar and to be there and to do new things, because I've done a lot of things since then over the last few years. And part of it is being joyful every day, and I think it's important for me, when I get up in the morning, it's not just to have my to-do list. It's what's my to-be list today? How do I want to be
Love
today?
that. I love that.
And it is to be joyful, and it is to, look up at the sky or, whatever. I live near the beach, so, run down to the beach. I'm so blessed about that, or call up a friend, or reach out. So for each of us is, really being aware of what those tiny moments are every day.
Yeah. For
So,
sure.
yeah, so that's on Amazon as well. So
Awesome.
if anybody wants that, yeah. So
well, Marybeth, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation today. Anything you want to share before we call it a wrap?
I think maybe it's to get back to the importance of relationships. We never know what our impact is on others. And we think about legacy. What are we leaving behind? Legacy is not just for rich and powerful people. It's for each of us. We leave a trace all the time, right? And so right now I think it's important for us, especially, to have kindness and show kindness to others, and to be bold, right? We get to be bold. We're not here to be small. We get to be bold, and it is reaching out. People are always there to help us. We're I think too afraid to ask for help sometime, but
Totally.
Power of relationships is everything. It's amazing, and people are there for us. So we're not in this alone, and I thank you, Kevin. You've been such a great influence to me over the years, and I treasure that. So I thank you.
Well, thank you as well, Marybeth. I just really appreciate you just coming here to have this conversation and just being you. And it was really great. So thanks again.
My total pleasure. Was very excited to do this with you today.
Same.
Okay.